Welcome to UNCAGED, the show that celebrates thought leadership from today's top business leaders. The program provides a voice to amazing executives from around the globe who are shaping the world of business today and mapping the path to the commerce of tomorrow. Today, we're speaking with Mike Veronis. Hey, Mike, how are you?
Vance, I'm well. How are you?
I'm very, very well. Mike is the Chief Revenue Officer of AppTek, which is an award-winning company and a pioneer in machine learning and artificial intelligence focused on automatic speech recognition, machine translation, and natural language understanding, which are all really interesting. And as many of you know, I'm fascinated by the area of machine learning right now. But before we get too deep into AppTek, Mike, let's go through a little bit about your background. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your career to date.
Sure, Vance. So I'm obviously in the artificial intelligence and machine learning world. And when I say that I grew up in that industry, I did so because my father was a professor, university professor working in neural networks back in 80 and 81. And so by osmosis, I grew up in an industry which at that time was just a crazy fancy notion of all of these tech guys, So for me, AI is really part of my DNA almost. So for me, I've been in the data analytics, machine learning, natural language processing industry for the majority of my professional career. In addition to that, I serve on a couple of boards which help at-risk children and giving them a little bit more of the types of support they need to have a better future, a more positive future. So that's also important to me as well. So that's kind of the nutshell.
Yeah, well, I mean, both of those are important areas. I'm going to go deeper a little bit on the machine learning piece because It's an industry that you were born into, clearly, and you're now working on it. So tell me a little bit more about what you're up to at AppTek and the latest.
Yeah, sure. So the company is one of the earliest companies in the commercial NLP space. So again, NLP being speech recognition, machine translation, natural language understanding, all under that language processing umbrella. So, we've been around since before Google and AWS. And so this is really a fantastic time in the industry between a combination of consumer adoption of NLP technologies, plus all of the hardware and the capability and the training data. It's kind of a convergence of ideal factors to make AI and NLP really come into its own now. So, we're working on some things such as helping the media and entertainment industry do live subtitling from one language to another, live foreign voice dubbing, so you can have a news anchor being dubbed, from English to German automatically without any human intervention. So we're really helping automate and increase the revenue opportunities for the media and entertainment industry. We're doing quite a good bit in voice and speech analytics. So one of the projects that we can talk about, if you like, is a project that we began at the earliest days of quarantine with a university here in the Washington, D.C. area called Gallaudet University. It's the country's only all-deaf university. So at the beginning of the pandemic, the hearing world suffered some crises, some PTSD, if you will, from the changes that we've all had to endure from now working remotely, working in isolation. Now multiply that by 10 for someone who's deaf and hard of hearing and now locked in their homes and also unable to freely communicate with others, in particular the hearing world, like a doctor, like other practitioners. So we're using our NLP and our research scientists combined with our partners from Gallaudet to develop something that is a universal overlay on top of any online meeting platform, tailored to the deaf and hard of hearing community, to essentially give them the freedom to have access to communicating with the rest of the world like each of us has. So for us, while that's really been, both a business opportunity, it's also been a significant community opportunity, because we're really serving a population of people, between deaf and hard of hearing, that's 20, 30 million people, and now working to give them a tailored application that'll open them back up in this isolated world of ours. So we feel good
Yeah,
about
no, I mean, it's such a valuable product and tool for them. And I guess I'd just love to understand a little bit better on how AppTek works with partners. Is it kind of more of a B2B company that supports these media companies? How do you guys work with other parties?
Yeah, so you got it. So we really are an engine for customers' applications. So, we work at the enterprise level. We're both cloud-based as well as on-prem, even though more customers now are really going to the cloud rather than on premises. And we fuel those applications, one, by having off-the-shelf language engines that people can deploy. So if a call center wants to deploy English and Spanish transcription engines to be able to transcribe every single call, to mine it for the data, to mine it for the sales signals and all of the predictive analytics, they can use it. But the other way that we also work with our customers is we have a very large part of our organization, which is data and language science. So nothing out of the box is ready to go and be as accurate as a customer needs, right? You change from the banking domain to the consumer products domain, to the sneakers, to the phones, whatever you're selling, insurance products, they all change. And so we work with our customers to help them tune those language models to be as accurate as possible to their customer set. And
That's
when I
great.
say we work with them, yeah, we're not trying to be a services organization. More so, our philosophy has always been make the technology work as best as you can, not build the company or the customers as long as you can. That's not our philosophy.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can tell you that I study Spanish quite a bit because I live in a bilingual household, and so it's quite important to speak Spanish well, albeit still my vocabulary is not what I need it to be. So I think I need your products just to help me through.
Well, we've got
on the
live
vocabulary level.
So we've got live speech to speech. So you can speak it in English, it'll speak it out in Spanish, and you never even have to learn it. And then it'll do the reverse. So you'll never have to learn it. Just keep our app in your pocket.
Great. Well, so, I mean, we've seen this explosion over the last couple of years with a lot of focus on, the term artificial intelligence. And, you mentioned that you grew up in a household where your father was working in machine learning in the early 80s. And I've done some work in the machine learning space. And certainly a lot of the things that we know that were being developed even in the 60s and 70s and in early 80s are really kind of coming to kind of commercial fore now. Where do you see the machine learning space that we're in right now, and how do you see it kind of shaping over the next couple of years?
Yeah, so I think that the machine learning space, if we want to focus it on certain applications, because machine learning is very broad, right? So
Correct.
if we focus it on something like language technologies,
Yeah.
which
NLP.
which are a part of so many of the things that we do. Your car has speech recognition software, your smartphones, the smart speakers, plus of course the phones and everything. So I think that what we're seeing now is the machine learning adoption and NLP in particular has now started to really become much more of an accepted part of solutions that are coming out. And we have much more of a recognition of the need for data and data scientists. So as we have more people working on the models to make use of all of this data, those can now be applied to those NLP platforms and to enable more engines and adaptations. So I think NLP will be much more of a plug and play capability than it is now. So we've gone from the 60s, 80s, and even 90s, where it was really a scientist's kind of hands-off type of a technology where you needed those scientists to implement it, to now you have so many cloud applications that have NLP models that people can just kind of download and put into their applications, still at the engineering level. I think the future is going to be the individual can now use those models on their own to solve more problems. So, you've got somebody who can go out and buy a little motherboard and Raspberry Pi. They can create their own little hardware devices and
Yeah.
automation tools for their house. I think the same thing is going to happen for NLP. Now we'll be able to train our own chatbots, our own virtual assistants. When that becomes the type of interaction that the consumer at large has with NLP or other machine learning models, I think we don't even know the solutions that some individual is going to come up with that can then be commercialized. It's going to be.
Yeah, no, I think you really captured it well. It's one of the areas that, voice and audio has been flagged for several years has been an area that's not fully developed and perhaps not fully utilized in any way. And I think, there were some social platforms that developed during COVID that captured people's imagination because they were more audio based, but the natural language processing capability that can make our lives easier or can become something that we don't have to touch, we don't have to read, is so critical, and it's so much more human. And so I'm very, very excited about what you're working on. And, I'd love to kind of jump back a little bit into a topic that you touched on. Clearly, the work that AppTek is doing helped people, helped the school for the deaf in the DC area during the pandemic. But the pandemic is one of these things that just impacted everybody in so many different ways. And I just would be curious to know a little bit more on how you guys adapted and, the challenges that you faced and the opportunities that have come from this.
Yeah, so a couple of things, first of all, going back to the project with Gallaudet. So that is actually going to become a spin-out company for Gallaudet. So that's going to be
Great.
To the deaf community at large, but other institutions. So we actually have 2 pilot customers, which are universities. So
That's
they're
amazing.
students alike. So, but in terms of how did we AppTek pivot? Well, so after we all got over the shock of this thing and how are we going to work remotely and so forth, we had, I think, a different opportunity in that we're an NLP company, which is even more in demand now with all of these online meeting services, right? If you go to Zoom, they do captioning, or all of the explosion of media content, right? People are at home more, there's more original content being created, whether it's on YouTube or Netflix or so forth. So for us, we really pivoted to those industries that saw the surge. So we were already in the call center space. Call centers saw a massive spike in usage, right? Customer service, order processing, so forth. So we really applied more of our tailored engines and went after much more business in the call center space because they couldn't handle the volume. Whether it was assisting the call center rep with some analytics or some of those automated bots. We did the same thing by pivoting stronger into media and entertainment, which again was trying to reach even more customers now in the home. And then the third one is what we've already discussed, is that accessibility market. So working with not only the university, but working with the travel and hospitality industry, food and beverage industry, because those are going to come back. Those are going to see, a return to some kind of pre-pandemic level. So we focused on those areas that were having some real needs. So anything in the service industry, restaurants, hotels, you know as well as everybody else does, there's a significant problem in hiring the people that they need to communicate. So
Yeah.
we partnered with one large company in the travel industry, food and beverage in particular, to help meet some of their needs because of this lack of recruiting possibilities. So we've developed some live speech-to-speech capabilities for them to be able to use, to be able to hire any employee regardless of the language barrier, right? And
Wow.
yeah, so we're looking at more and more, how can we help those industries that really just had a major impact from pandemic?
I thought you were going to say that you had worked with somebody and had removed their need for drive-through window folks.
No,
So,
no, no. You know, so it's an interesting comment that you make, and I'm glad that you made it, because that's one of the things that I think is going to help the future. If you ask me, where do I see the future going in terms of NLP and AI technologies at large, is really going to be when the current operators in their respective job are trained as to how to use AI and NLP in an assistive way,
yeah,
right?
let's go a little bit more into that,
Yeah,
because there are a lot of discussions that highlight different aspects of NLP and how it will be applied. And we've been talking about some of the great ways that it can assist and enhance capabilities right now. To tell me more about your viewpoint on this, you see it more as a partner capability, or how do you imagine it functioning?
yeah, I certainly do in some respects. I can't say that in every respect AI is not going to replace some of the current human operated
Hmm.
jobs. But let's take, for example, a subtitler in the media and entertainment industry, right? So there is more content than any human can keep up with to subtitle in multiple languages, so that a Netflix show, a Squid Game, for example, can now be marketed to 20, 30, 40 other countries.
Hmm.
But you still need that expertise and understanding from that human subtitler who understands the particular characteristics of subtitling in the audience. Now, if they could use speech recognition and be a quality editor, right, rather than just a typist, and now get out so much more work. These subtitlers are paid for the amount of content they process. So for them, automatic speech recognition is really an enabler to earn more and do more, and ultimately also be more accurate, because they're not as tired from an 8-hour day of having to create versus edit,
Yeah.
right? So that's one thing that
No, and I mean, it's not only the Netflix of this world. I mean, I even see it with the work that we do. Even if it's not changing languages, it's just known that video content that shows the subtitles in English perform much better, because if people are looking at something on a mobile device and they can't play the audio, they still can know what's going on. So it's
right.
absolutely critical.
And imagine now in the fast food industry that you mentioned, just briefly, imagine now if a deaf person could now work at the drive-through, because you're using speech recognition and they're seeing the order on screen. They're seeing the order on an iPad as they're interacting with the customers. I mean, there are significant opportunities for using NLP that we're not fully using now.
Yeah.
So I just think, again, ultimately it's going to be about the perception of the individual user as to how can I use these assistive tools rather than be threatened by them. And
Yeah.
we're going to continue to see time over time, as more people use Siri and Alexa, you become more familiar with it, right? It's less intimidating. So I think that's our future is.
Yeah, I think we'll have that moment of, almost the pre-Alexa and post-Alexa babies, and how they grew
Got
up.
it.
It's a much more seamless process. It's a kind
You
of
got it.
pre-internet and post-internet, or pre-mobile and post-mobile. It's great. Well, Mike, it's been amazing talking to you. We've been speaking with Mike Veronis. He is the Chief Revenue Officer at AppTek, which is a pioneer in machine learning and artificial intelligence focused on automatic speech recognition, machine translation, and natural language understanding. We've been talking about some of the things that they've been working on, in particular to support the deaf community, but also to just make translation and all of the elements of how we would see audio and language functioning in a more effective way, and bringing that to bear for all enterprises and all types of businesses. Mike, it's been really interesting. If someone wanted to learn more about what AppTek is up to, where should they find you?
So they can just go to apptek.com, apptek.com. And it's been a real pleasure, Bant. I appreciate it. Again, apptek.com, AppTek.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being on UNCAGED, and we look forward to talking to you again.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
Cheers.
Be well. Bye-bye.